The medical bay at Harmony's Edge had never seen anything quite like this before. Dr. Trell adjusted his crystalline appendages as he studied the readouts from the newest species to join the Galactic Coalition. The data made no sense to his scientific mind. These creatures called humans seemed to be constructed from the most delicate materials imaginable. "Look at this skin thickness," Dr. Trell muttered to his assistant, Dr. Yalin, whose gaseous form swirled in patterns of concern. 0.2 millimeters at most. My people have crystal armor that is 50 times thicker. How do they survive their own planet? The humans had arrived 3 days ago aboard their vessel Endurance. Their leader, David Reed, had seemed confident enough during the initial diplomatic meetings. But now, as Dr. Trell reviewed their biological scans, he wondered if bringing them to the Coalition was a mistake. These beings could be killed by things that wouldn't even register as threats to most galactic species. Amy Foster sat uncomfortably on the examination table as various alien medical devices hummed around her. The young lieutenant had volunteered for the standard Coalition medical evaluation, though she was beginning to regret that decision. The crystalline doctor seemed increasingly worried with each test result. "Your bone density is concerning," Dr. Trell announced through his translation device. "A simple fall could shatter your entire skeletal system, and this cardiovascular arrangement, pumping liquid through flexible tubes, seems highly inefficient and vulnerable." Amy tried to smile reassuringly. "We're tougher than we look, Doctor. Humans have survived on Earth for thousands of years." "Earth must be an incredibly gentle world," Dr. Yalin's voice whispered from the air around them. "Our preliminary scans show you can be poisoned by substances that most species use as seasoning. The radiation levels on this station alone should have killed you within hours." Dr. Trell made notes on his data pad with sharp, precise movements. "I must recommend immediate protective protocols. These humans cannot be exposed to standard galactic environments without extensive life support systems." Meanwhile, in the engineering section, Tom Bradley was having his own encounter with alien concern. The Granite Folk supervisor, Chorus, watched nervously as Tom examined a power coupling. Chorus's stone-like features showed genuine worry. "Friend Tom, perhaps you should observe from a safe distance," Chorus rumbled, his voice like grinding rocks. "That coupling operates at temperatures that would instantly vaporize your organic matter." Tom chuckled, using his scanner to check the readings. "It's only running at about 200 degrees. My suit can handle that easily." 200 degrees? Chorus's eyes widened in his granite face. "That temperature would crack even young granite folk. Your species truly lives on the edge of destruction." Word spread quickly through the station about humanity's incredible fragility. In the mess hall, Vorthak officers discussed the newcomers with a mixture of fascination and pity. The energy-based Luminari flickered with concern whenever they encountered human crew members. Afraid their natural electrical fields might accidentally harm them, Captain Reed found himself constantly reassuring other species that his crew would be fine. During a routine meeting with Station Commander Thane, a towering insectoid Kalari, Reed noticed the commander's careful movements. "Commander, you seem tense," Reed observed. "I am trying not to exhale too forcefully," Thane replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Dr. Trell informed me that the gases I naturally produce could prove toxic to human respiratory systems. I fear I might accidentally kill you simply by breathing." Reed couldn't help but laugh, which made Thane retreat several steps in alarm. "Commander, I assure you we're not that delicate. Humans have faced far worse than different atmospheric compositions." But Dr. Trell's medical reports had already been distributed throughout the Coalition medical network. The official classification came through within hours. Humans were to be treated as a critical care species, a designation typically reserved for species on the verge of extinction or beings so fragile they required constant medical supervision. The classification sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Never before had a species capable of space travel been considered so vulnerable. Military analysts wondered how humans had ever survived long enough to develop technology. Anthropologists speculated that Earth must be a paradise world with no Natural dangers. Dr. Trell continued his examinations, growing more concerned with each discovery. Human muscles were simply organized protein fibers that could tear under moderate stress. Their internal organs were soft tissue that could be damaged by impacts that wouldn't even bruise a granite folk child. Most shocking of all, their brains were unprotected except for a thin layer of bone that could be cracked by a simple fall. I don't understand how your species survived its evolutionary period, Dr. Trell told Amy during her follow-up examination. You lack natural armor, your claws are vestigial, your teeth are inadequate for serious combat, and your physical strength is minimal compared to most predators. Amy thought about her history lessons back on Earth. Dr. Humans didn't survive because we were the strongest. We survived because we were adaptable. Adaptable? Dr. Yalen's form swirled with curiosity. In what sense? We learned to work together, to use tools, to heal from injuries and keep going, Amy explained. Humans don't give up easily. Dr. Trell made more notes, but his expression remained concerned. Your healing factor is minimal compared to most species. A wound that would close in hours for a Kalari might take your body weeks to repair. And the scarring suggests permanent damage rather than true healing. As the days passed, the station's crew treated the humans with increasingly careful attention. Maintenance crews cleared corridors before humans passed through, afraid that normal foot traffic might accidentally injure them. The mess hall began serving specially prepared meals that wouldn't poison human digestive systems. Even the artificial gravity was adjusted to prevent the humans from being crushed by standard galactic settings. The humans found themselves living in a protective bubble, surrounded by alien species who viewed them as incredibly brave for simply existing. Every human who walked through the station corridors was seen as a warrior simply for surviving in such a fragile form, but Amy Foster was beginning to notice something the alien doctors hadn't. The small cut on her hand from the examination table was healing faster than Dr. Trell had predicted. The skin was knitting back together in ways that seemed to puzzle the medical censors. She decided not to mention it yet. After all, what could she possibly teach these advanced alien physicians about biology? They had been studying life forms across the galaxy for centuries. Surely they understood healing better than a human lieutenant who had only basic medical training. Still, as she watched the cut slowly disappear, Amy couldn't help but wonder if the aliens might be missing something important about human resilience, something that their sophisticated medical equipment couldn't detect and their centuries of experience hadn't prepared them for. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most unexpected places. Dr. Trell's sleep cycle was interrupted by an urgent alert from the medical monitoring system. His crystalline form unfolded from his rest chamber as he processed the data streaming across his consciousness. The human-designated Amy Foster was showing unusual biological activity in her injured tissue. The good doctor rushed to his laboratory, where continuous scans had been monitoring the human's wound for the past 6 hours. What he saw challenged everything he understood about biological repair systems. The 2-inch laceration that should have required weeks of careful treatment was showing signs of autonomous healing at an impossible rate. Computer, display cellular activity in the wound region, Dr. Trell commanded, his voice carrying undertones of scientific excitement mixed with disbelief. The holographic display showed Amy's cells multiplying at extraordinary speeds. New tissue was forming layers beneath the protective scab, while blood vessels were actually regrowing themselves to restore circulation. This was not the slow, careful healing process documented in any known species. Dr. Yalazed beside him, her gaseous form swirling with patterns of curiosity. The regeneration rate is unprecedented. Look at these protein synthesis readings. Her body is manufacturing structural materials faster than our equipment can track. Impossible, Dr. Trell muttered, checking his instruments for malfunctions. No species can sustain this level of cellular activity without massive energy expenditure. She should be exhausted, possibly dying from the metabolic strain. But Amy Foster was sleeping peacefully in her quarters, her vital signs showing normal human parameters. Her body was performing what the aliens considered miraculous healing while she remained completely unaware of the scientific revolution occurring in her tissue. 3 days later, Tom Bradley provided an even more dramatic demonstration. The engineering deck had been running routine maintenance on the plasma conduit system when a coupling failed without warning. The resulting energy discharge caught Tom directly in the chest and left arm, burning through his protective suit and searing his skin. The emergency medical team reached him within minutes, expecting to find a dead human. Instead, they found Tom conscious and alert. Though clearly in pain, Dr. Trell arrived with a full trauma unit, prepared to attempt whatever desperate measures might save a human life. The burns cover approximately 15% of his body surface, Dr. Trell announced to his team. For humans, this should be fatal. Prepare the regeneration tanks and contact the Coalition's best surgeons. But as they transported Tom to the medical bay, something strange was already happening. The burned tissue was not continuing to deteriorate, as expected. Instead, his body was mounting a response that defied all known biological principles. Doctor Yallen whispered, look at the wound margins. They're not expanding. The damage has been contained. Tom's injuries were severe by human standards, but his body was responding in ways that fascinated the alien medical staff. His blood was carrying specialized cells to the burned areas, while his nervous system was somehow managing pain levels that should have sent him into shock. How are you maintaining consciousness? Dr. Trell asked Tom directly. The pain signals from these burns should have overwhelmed your nervous system? Tom managed a weak smile. Humans are good at dealing with pain, Doctor. We've had a lot of practice. The medical team established continuous monitoring of Tom's condition, expecting to document the decline and death of their patient. Instead, they witnessed something that would change galactic medicine forever. Within hours, Tom's burned skin began showing signs of new cell growth. Not the slow, careful regeneration that other species experienced, but rapid, aggressive healing that seemed to accelerate as time passed. His body was learning how to repair the damage more efficiently with each passing hour. This is impossible, Dr. Trell repeated, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. His cellular repair mechanisms are adapting in real time. Look at these enzyme production rates. His body is manufacturing new proteins specifically designed to counteract the plasma burn damage. Dr. Yallen's gaseous form swirled with excitement. It's not just healing, it's improving. His new tissue is showing increased resistance to energy damage. The burn actually triggered an evolutionary response. Word of Tom's recovery spread through the station's medical community like wildfire. Researchers from across the Coalition began arriving to observe the phenomenon. The granite folk, who required surgical replacement of damaged stone sections, were particularly amazed by the organic regeneration. Dr. Keth, a senior Kalari physician, examined Tom's burns with instruments that could analyze tissue at the molecular level. The human body is teaching itself how to heal more effectively, he announced to the gathered medical staff. Each damaged cell is communicating with neighboring cells, sharing information about how to resist similar damage in the future. The implications were staggering. While other species had fixed biological limitations, humans appeared to be constantly evolving at the cellular level. Every injury was a learning experience that made them stronger and more resilient. Tom's burns, which should have required months of treatment and left permanent scars, were healing cleanly within weeks. More importantly, his body was building defenses against similar injuries. His skin was developing increased resistance to energy weapons. His circulatory system was improving its emergency response protocols, and his nervous system was learning to manage pain more effectively. We need to document everything, Dr. Trell announced to his expanded research team. This healing process could revolutionize our understanding of biological adaptation. But the most shocking discovery came when they compared Tom's post-injury scans to his original medical records. The human wasn't just healing, he was improving. His muscle tissue was denser, his bone structure was stronger, and his cardiovascular system was more efficient than before the accident. Scars are not weaknesses. In human biology, Dr. Yalin reported to the Coalition Medical Council. They are reinforcements. Each injury makes them more resilient to future damage. The medical classification for humans was quietly updated. The critical care species designation was replaced with under review, though no one was quite sure what the final classification should be. How do you categorize a species that becomes stronger through adversity? Amy Foster's cut had healed completely, leaving only a thin white line that was actually tougher than the surrounding skin. Tom's burns were fading daily, replaced by new tissue that was more resistant to energy damage than his original skin had been. Dr. Trell found himself staying late in his laboratory, studying the growing database of human healing responses. These beings had seemed so fragile when they arrived, but now he was beginning to suspect that fragility might be the most deceptive characteristic in the galaxy. Computer, project healing timeline for a similar injury in a Vorthax subject, he commanded. The display showed a careful, months-long process of crystal regrowth that would eventually restore function but never exceed original durability. It was predictable, logical, and completely unlike the chaotic, adaptive healing he was observing in humans. As Dr. Trell prepared his preliminary report for the Coalition Medical Database, he chose his words carefully. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most powerful abilities come disguised as weaknesses. 3 weeks after Tom's accident, the medical bay at Harmony's Edge had transformed into the most active research facility in Coalition space. Scientists from dozens of species had arrived to study the phenomenon that was challenging everything. They thought they knew about biology. Dr. Voss, a senior researcher from the Luminari Collective, flickered with patterns of amazement as she reviewed the human healing data. Her energy-based form had witnessed biological processes across 1,000 worlds, but nothing had prepared her for what she was observing. The human-designated Tom Bradley has not only recovered from injuries that should have been fatal, she announced to the gathered research team. His body has fundamentally altered its structure to prevent similar damage in the future. The revelation had come through detailed molecular analysis of Tom's recovered tissue. His skin now contained new protein structures that could disperse energy more effectively. His circulatory system had developed improved clotting mechanisms. Most remarkably, his nervous system had actually grown new pathways that allowed him to function, despite pain levels that would incapacitate most species. Captain Reed found himself at the center of unprecedented scientific attention. Coalition researchers approached him with requests that seemed more suited to studying some exotic phenomenon than examining a starship crew. Captain, Dr. Keth approached him with careful respect. We would like to propose a controlled study of human healing responses. With your permission, we would like to observe how your species recovers from various forms of damage. Reed considered the request carefully. The implications were significant, but he also recognized the potential benefits. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? Nothing harmful, Dr. Keth assured him quickly. Simple injuries that would be considered minor by galactic standards. We want to understand how human healing differs from known biological processes. The controlled study began with Reed himself as the primary subject. Under carefully monitored conditions, he allowed Coalition researchers to inflict minor injuries while their instruments recorded every aspect of his body's response. The first test involved a small cut on Reed's forearm. Within minutes, his blood had formed a protective seal while specialized cells began migrating to the injury site. The researchers watched in fascination as his body immediately began producing new tissue specifically designed to repair the damage. Look at this cellular communication, Dr. Yalin observed, her gaseous form swirling with excitement. His injured cells are sending chemical signals throughout his entire body. It's like they're teaching the rest of his system how to prepare for similar injuries. But the most shocking discovery came when they inflicted a second identical cut on Reed's other arm. His body responded twice as fast as if it had learned from the first injury. The healing process was not just repairing damage, but actively improving its own efficiency. This is unprecedented, Dr. Trell announced to the research team. Human healing is not just regenerative, it's adaptive. Every injury makes them better at surviving future injuries. Admiral Chorus of the Coalition Defense Fleet had been monitoring the research with growing interest. As a military strategist, he understood the implications better than the scientists realized. He requested a private meeting with the research team to discuss their findings. "Doctors, I need to understand something," Admiral Chorus began, his massive granite folk frame dwarfing the assembled researchers. "Are you telling me that humans become stronger when they are injured?" "That's a simplified explanation, but essentially correct," Dr. Trell replied. "Human healing doesn't just restore original function, it improves upon it." Admiral Chorus processed this information with growing amazement. In his thousands of years of military experience, he had never encountered a species that could turn injury into advantage. Most beings tried to avoid damage because it weakened them permanently. But humans seemed to treat injury as a form of training. "Show me the combat implications," Admiral Chorus commanded. The researchers compiled data from human military history obtained through cultural exchange programs. The admiral studied reports of human soldiers who had survived injuries that would have ended the careers of warriors from other species. More importantly, he read accounts of humans who had returned to combat stronger and more effective than before their injuries. This human, Lieutenant Morrison, was severely wounded in a training accident, Admiral Chorus read from the report. He returned to active duty with improved reflexes and enhanced pain tolerance. His performance ratings actually increased after his injury. "That's consistent with what we're observing," Dr. Voss explained. "Human nervous systems adapt to trauma by becoming more efficient. Their bodies learn to function despite circumstances that would overwhelm other species." The Admiral's granite features shifted into what his species considered a thoughtful expression. "Doctors, I need you to understand something. The Coalition faces threats that can adapt to our biological characteristics. We've encountered enemies who can neutralize our natural defenses by studying our predictable healing patterns." He paused, allowing the implications to sink in. But humans don't have predictable healing patterns. They change, they adapt. They become something new with every injury. Dr. Trell realized where the Admiral's thoughts were leading. "You're suggesting that human unpredictability could be strategically valuable." "I'm suggesting that human adaptability could save the Coalition," Admiral Chorus replied firmly. "While our enemies study how to defeat crystalline armor or energy-based forms, humans are constantly evolving new defenses." The research team exchanged glances. They had been so focused on the medical implications that they had missed the military significance of their discoveries. Human healing wasn't just about recovery. It was about continuous improvement under pressure. Re-volunteered for increasingly complex tests, allowing the researchers to observe how his body responded to different types of stress. Toxin exposure led to improved liver function. Radiation exposure resulted in enhanced cellular repair mechanisms. Even psychological stress seemed to strengthen his mental resilience. "Captain, your species doesn't just heal from damage, Dr. Yalin observed. You evolve from it. Every challenge makes you more capable of handling similar challenges in the future." "That's how humans have always survived," Reed replied. "We don't avoid problems. We learn from them and become stronger." The research data was compiled into a comprehensive report that would revolutionize Coalition understanding of human capabilities. The species that had seemed so fragile was revealed to possess the most sophisticated adaptive healing system in known space. But the most significant discovery was yet to come. As the researchers analyzed their data, they began to understand that human healing was not just about individual recovery. It was about species-level adaptation. Each human who survived an injury was passing genetic improvements to future generations. "They're not just healing," Dr. Trell announced to the Coalition Scientific Council. "They're evolving in real time. Every generation of humans is more resilient than the last." The implications were staggering. While other species had reached evolutionary plateaus, humans were still climbing. They were a species that became stronger through adversity. Not in spite of it, Admiral Chorus's final report to the Coalition Defense Command was brief but transformative. Human fragility is an illusion. Their true strength lies in their ability to grow stronger from every wound. We have not recruited a weak species. We have recruited a species that cannot be permanently weakened. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are those who become stronger every time you hurt them. The emergency session of the Coalition High Council convened in the early hours of the Galactic Standard Day. Representatives from across known space gathered in the Great Chamber of Unity Station, their various forms creating a diverse assembly of crystalline, gaseous, and energy-based beings. The news they had received was the worst possible. Chancellor Vex, the ancient Vorthic leader, projected the intelligence reports with grim efficiency. The Devourers have breached the outer rim. 3 star systems have gone completely dark. Vega Prime, New Calari, and the Granite Folk colony of Ironhold have all ceased transmissions. The assembled delegates responded with their species equivalent of horror. The Devourers were a machine intelligence that had appeared from the void decades ago, consuming entire civilizations and leaving only empty space in their wake. What made them truly terrifying was their ability to adapt to any biological defense. Previous encounters have shown that the Devourers can analyze and counter any biological system within hours. Admiral Chorus reported to the Council. They study our cellular structures, our energy patterns, our defensive mechanisms, and then develop countermeasures that make us completely vulnerable. The Luminari representative, a being of pure energy called Flux, pulsed with worried patterns. Our energy-based forms provided no advantage. The Devourers adapted to our frequency signatures within minutes. Our entire fleet was neutralized before we could mount an effective defense. General Thane, the Kalari military commander, clicked, his mandibles nervously. The same happened to our forces. The Devourers analyzed our exoskeleton composition and developed weapons that could dissolve our natural armor. We lost entire battalions to weapons that shouldn't have been able to harm us. The pattern was consistent across every species that had encountered the Devourers. These machine intelligences studied their opponents, learned their biological weaknesses, and then exploited them with ruthless efficiency. No known species had been able to maintain combat effectiveness for more than a few hours against them. The Devourers are moving toward the core systems, Chancellor Vex announced. Their current trajectory will bring them to human space within 6 standard months. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The newest and seemingly most fragile members of the coalition were about to face an enemy that had defeated every other species in direct combat. Perhaps we should evacuate. The humans, suggested Dr. Trell, who had been invited to provide biological expertise. If the Devourers have defeated species far more durable than humanity, there is no logical reason to believe humans could survive an encounter. The human colonies are already aware of the threat, Admiral Chorus reported. Their response was unexpected. The Admiral activated a communication link to the human fleet command. Captain Reed's image appeared in the chamber, his expression calm but determined. The alien delegates studied him with new understanding, no longer seeing fragility but recognizing the adaptive potential they had recently discovered. Captain Reed, Chancellor Vex addressed him formally. The coalition is prepared to provide evacuation support for all human colonies in the threatened sectors. Our analysis suggests that humans cannot survive direct contact with the Devourers. Reed's response surprised everyone in the chamber. Chancellor, with respect, we volunteer to serve as the Advanced Reconnaissance Force. The chamber erupted in various species expressions of disbelief. The Granite Folk delegate Chorus rumbled with concern. Captain, the Devourers have defeated species with natural armor 50 times stronger than human skin. Your people would be destroyed in the first moments of contact. Maybe, Reed replied calmly. But we might also be the only species capable of surviving long enough to learn how to fight them. Dr. Yellen, who had been studying human adaptive healing, understood immediately. The Devourers adapt to fixed biological systems. But humans, don't have fixed biological systems. You change constantly. Exactly, Reed confirmed. While the Devourers are analyzing what we were, we're becoming something new. Our healing abilities don't just repair damage. They adapt to prevent similar damage in the future. Admiral Chorus considered the implications. You're suggesting that human adaptability could outpace Devourer analysis. I'm suggesting that we're willing to find out, Reed replied. The Devourer's strength comes from their ability to counter predictable biological responses. But human biology is inherently unpredictable. The debate that followed was intense. Military strategists argued that sending humans against the Devourers was suicide. Medical researchers countered that human adaptive healing might provide the key to survival. Political leaders worried about the implications of using the Coalition's newest members as test subjects, but the deciding factor came from an unexpected source. The artificial intelligence that managed Unity Station's systems, designated Oracle, rarely spoke in council sessions. When it did, the assembled delegates listened carefully. Analysis indicates that all previous anti-Devourer strategies have failed due to biological predictability, Oracle announced in its emotionless voice. Human biological systems display unprecedented variability. Probability calculations suggest a non-zero chance of successful adaptation. Chancellor Vex made the final decision. The human fleet will serve as our forward reconnaissance force. They will engage the Devourers at the Proxima system and attempt to gather intelligence about their capabilities. The vote was close, but it passed. The species that had been considered too fragile for standard Coalition duty would face the greatest threat in galactic history. As the council session ended, Dr. Trell approached Reed's communication link. Captain, I must ask, are you certain about this course of action? The Devourers have never been defeated? Reed smiled with quiet confidence. Doctor, you've studied human healing for weeks. You've seen how we adapt to injury. The Devourers might be able to hurt us, but can they hurt us faster than we can learn to survive? The question hung in the air as the communication link closed. The Coalition had made its decision. The most fragile species in known space would face the most dangerous enemy in galactic history. Preparation began immediately. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Proxima system, their ships equipped with the best medical facilities the Coalition could provide. Everyone understood that this would be unlike any battle in recorded history. The Devourers were coming, and humanity was about to discover whether their greatest weakness could become their ultimate strength. The galaxy watched nervously as the supposedly fragile humans prepared to face an enemy that had never known defeat, but in the human fleet there was no fear. Only determination. They understood something the other species had missed. The Devourers had never fought an enemy that became stronger with every wound. They had never faced a species that treated injury as evolution. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity was ready to learn what they could become when faced with the ultimate test of their adaptive abilities. The first wave of Devourer ships emerged from dark space like a plague of mechanical locusts. Their hulls gleamed with an oily blackness that seemed to absorb light itself, and their weapon systems pulsed with energy signatures that defied conventional understanding. The human fleet waited at the edge of the Proxima system, their ships arranged in a formation that would have seemed suicidal to any other species. Lisa Park gripped the tactical console aboard the destroyer Phoenix as the enemy vessels closed distance. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency that masked their understanding of the odds. Every simulation had shown the same result. The Devourers would analyze human biology within minutes and develop countermeasures that would make them completely vulnerable. Enemy weapons charging, reported Communications Officer Bell, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Energy signatures match those used against the Vorthak fleet. They're preparing the same adaptive protocols. The Devourers opened fire without warning or communication. Their weapons were designed to penetrate crystalline armor and disrupt energy-based forms, but when they struck human ships, something unexpected happened. The humans were hurt, certainly, but they didn't die as quickly as predicted. Hull breach. "On deck 7, reported Damage Control Officer Walsh. "Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we're losing atmosphere." Lisa felt the ship shudder under the assault, but she also noticed something the Coalition observers hadn't expected. The crew was adapting to the emergency with remarkable speed. Within minutes, they had sealed the breach and restored normal. "Operations, Devourers are scanning us," Bell announced. "They're analyzing our biological signatures just like they did with the other species." But the scan results were unlike anything the Devourers had encountered before. Instead of finding fixed biological patterns to counter, they discovered a species that was constantly changing. Human stress responses were altering their cellular structures in real time, making each scan obsolete within minutes. The battle escalated quickly. Devourer weapons that had effortlessly destroyed granite folk armor and dispersed luminary energy forms were causing damage to human ships, but not the instant annihilation they had inflicted on other species. The humans were surviving long enough to learn. "They're adapting their weapons," Lisa observed, watching the tactical display as Devourer ships modified their attack patterns. "But we're adapting faster." The key difference became apparent within the first hour of combat. While the Devourers could analyze and counter biological systems, they were designed to fight opponents with predictable responses. Human biology was inherently unpredictable, and human tactics were even more so. Engineer Torres, working in the Phoenix's damaged sections, found his body responding to the alien atmosphere leaking through the hull breaches. Instead of being poisoned by the Devourer's toxic gases, his respiratory system began filtering the contaminants more efficiently. His body was learning to function in conditions that should have killed him. "Medical bay to bridge," came Dr. Santos's voice over the intercom. "We're seeing unprecedented adaptation rates in the injured crew. Burns from Devourer energy weapons are healing with improved resistance to similar damage." The phenomenon was occurring throughout the human fleet. Crew members who survived the initial Devourer attacks were returning to duty with enhanced capabilities. Their bodies were not just healing from the damage, but evolving to prevent similar injuries in the future. "The Devourers are having trouble maintaining target locks," reported Tactical Officer Murphy. "Their weapons are calibrated for the humans. They scanned 5 minutes ago, not the humans they're facing now." Lisa realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The Devourer's greatest strength was being turned against them. Their adaptive algorithms couldn't keep pace with an opponent that was evolving faster than they could analyze. "All ships. This is Park," Lisa announced to the fleet. "Continue aggressive engagement. Do not retreat. Let them hurt us and learn from it." The order would have seemed insane to any other species, but the human crews understood. They were turning injury into advantage. Using the Devourer's own attacks as a form of accelerated evolution, the battle raged for hours, with human ships taking tremendous damage but refusing to withdraw. Each attack wave from the Devourers was less effective than the last, as human crews adapted to their weapons and tactics. What had begun as a massacre was becoming a stalemate. The turning point came when Lieutenant Commander Stone, injured in the first wave of attacks, returned to combat with her body now naturally resistant to Devourer energy weapons. Her skin had developed new protein structures that could disperse the alien energy more effectively, and her nervous system had adapted to function despite pain levels that would have incapacitated her before the battle. "The Devourers are showing confusion in their attack patterns," Murphy reported. "They're trying to recalibrate their weapons, but we're changing faster than they can adapt." The machine intelligence was experiencing something it had never encountered before. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers were fighting an enemy that became stronger with each attack. Their adaptive algorithms were failing because they were designed to counter stable biological systems, not species that evolved in real time. "They're retreating," Bell announced with amazement. "The Devourer fleet is withdrawing from the system." The impossible had happened. The supposedly fragile humans had not only survived contact with the Devourers, but had actually forced them to retreat. The implications rippled through the Coalition immediately. "All ships, report status," Lisa commanded. The responses revealed the true scope of what had occurred. Every human ship had been damaged, every crew member had been injured, but they had all adapted. The fleet that emerged from the battle was fundamentally different from the one that had entered it. Medical reports are incredible, Dr. Santos announced. Crew members are showing enhanced resistance to energy weapons, improved healing rates, and increased pain tolerance. We're not just recovered from the battle, we're improved by it. The Coalition observers who had monitored the battle from a safe distance were stunned. Admiral Corus's voice came through the communication system with undisguised amazement. Captain Park, how did you achieve what no other species has managed? Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew, noting the subtle changes in their posture and expressions. They carried themselves differently now, with the confidence that came from surviving the impossible. Admiral, we didn't defeat the Devourers, Lisa replied honestly. We confused them. Their entire strategy depends on analyzing fixed biological patterns and exploiting predictable weaknesses. But humans don't have fixed patterns. The communication channel filled with voices from across the Coalition as the implications sank in. For decades, the Devourers had been an unstoppable force because they could adapt to any known biological system. But they had never encountered a biological system that could out-adapt them. The Devourers analyze, counter, and destroy. Dr. Trell's voice came through the communication link. But humans analyze, adapt, and improve. You turn their greatest strength into a liability. The battle data was transmitted throughout Coalition space within hours. Medical teams studied the extraordinary healing rates exhibited by human crews. Military strategists analyzed how human tactics had evolved during the battle itself. Scientists marveled at the real-time biological adaptation that had made conventional combat doctrine obsolete. But the most significant discovery came from the Devourer ships themselves. For the first time in recorded history, the machine intelligence had been forced to retreat not because of superior firepower or better technology, but because their opponents had evolved beyond their ability to counter. The Devourers left behind damaged units, reported the salvage teams. Analysis shows their adaptive algorithms were overwhelmed. They couldn't process the rate of change in human biology fast enough to maintain effective countermeasures. Captain Reed, who had been monitoring the battle from the fleet command vessel, made a proposal that would change galactic warfare forever. We volunteered to train other species in adaptive combat techniques. Human healing abilities might be unique, but our tactical adaptation can be learned. The response from the Coalition was immediate and enthusiastic. Within weeks, human military advisors were stationed throughout Coalition space, teaching other species how to use unpredictability as a weapon. While they couldn't match human biological adaptation, they could learn to think like humans in combat. The Devourers made 2 more attempts to penetrate Coalition space over the following months. Each time, they encountered human-trained forces that refused to fight according to predictable patterns. Each time, they were forced to retreat as their adaptive algorithms failed to keep pace with enemies that wouldn't stay the same long enough to be countered. Dr. Trell's final report to the Coalition. Medical Council revolutionized their understanding of biological potential. Human healing is not merely regenerative, he wrote. It is evolutionary. Every injury teaches their bodies how to be stronger. Every challenge makes them more resilient. They are not just a species that heals. They are a species that improves. The classification for humans was changed one final time. No longer were they considered fragile or even resilient. They were reclassified as adaptive enhancement species, beings whose greatest strength lay in their ability to become stronger through adversity. Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned vessel Resilience, watching as human medical teams worked alongside alien physicians throughout Coalition space. The techniques developed during the Devourer encounters were being adapted to help other species heal more effectively. The irony was not lost on her. The species that had been deemed too fragile for galactic civilization had become its greatest asset, not because they were invulnerable, but because they could turn vulnerability into strength. Captain, Communications Officer Bell approached her with a message pad. We're receiving requests from 17 different star systems for human medical advisors. They want to learn our healing techniques. Lisa smiled as she looked out at the stars. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not by being the strongest or the toughest, but by being the most adaptable. They had taught the galaxy that true strength didn't come from avoiding damage, but from growing stronger every time you were hurt. The Devourers still lurked in the dark spaces between stars, but they no longer represented an unstoppable threat. They had learned what every bully eventually discovers. The most dangerous opponents are those who become stronger every time you hurt them. And throughout Coalition space, the message was clear. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not in spite of their fragility, but because of what they could become when that fragility was tested. They were living proof that evolution never stops, that adaptation never ends, and that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the ability to heal and grow stronger. The galaxy had called them fragile. The galaxy had been wrong. Humans weren't fragile. They were antifragile beings who thrived on stress, grew stronger under pressure, and turned every challenge into an opportunity for improvement. The age of human resilience had begun, and the universe would never be the same.